Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is The Lollipop and I never thought this day would come, but Trek has recently released some brand new Marlin models, but these are electric. That's right, no more having to buy an e-bike conversion kit for your Marlin. The Trek Marlins now have an e-bike version, and Trek is calling this the Marlin Plus lineup. So in this video, I'm going to compare the normal Trek Marlin bikes with these electric Marlins to show you what changes, and there are some surprising changes that are pretty cool, so I'm excited to get into those. As always, I'll be comparing all the parts on these bikes to give you an in-depth comparison, and I'll complete these tables at the end of the video to show off all of those differences in one place, and finally I'll give you my personal thoughts on the lineup and which bike you should buy. So for those of you that don't know, the Trek Marlins are Trek's entry-level mountain bikes, designed for both beginner and intermediate mountain biking, as well as just for commuting or getting around on your bike, so they can kind of do it all. These bikes have always been manual, but now Trek has converted some of the bikes in the lineup to electric, specifically the Marlin 6 Gen 3 and Marlin 8 Gen 3, which makes these electric Marlins the least expensive way to get an electric mountain bike from Trek, so that's pretty cool. And one last thing I'll mention here is that these Marlin Plus bikes have not yet been released in the United States, but I have seen them released in the UK and perhaps some other countries as well, but I'll add updates in the comments section below if anything changes. There's a lot to cover, so let's get right into it by first talking about the main difference between the Marlin and the Marlin Plus, which is the brand new electric Marlin frame. In terms of similarities between the frames, both have internal cable routing and have mounting points for a rear rack and for a kickstand for all of the commuters out there. They also both have a rubber chainstay protector to prevent chain noise and paint damage, and they have some similar geometry measurements as well, which we'll get to later. For the differences, we have some pretty significant ones. So for one, of course, the Marlin Plus frame has to accommodate the battery and the motor. So we do have some redesigned sections to integrate the battery in the down tube, as well as add the mid-drive motor near the bottom bracket. The battery is a 400 watt-hour Bosch branded compact tube battery, which is not removable, but that makes it thinner and sleeker. And the motor is a 50 Newton meter Bosch Active Line Plus motor, which is a smaller motor than many e-bikes out there, but that also makes it more lightweight and a lot quieter as well. And one cool detail here is that you have the Marlin logo on the side, so there's some more proof that this is in fact a Marlin. This battery and motor combination lets you go up to 25 kilometers per hour or about 15 miles per hour, so these bikes are designed for more light trail riding and not going too fast or crazy with them. They have a riding range of 2 to 4 hours, but you can extend this range by about 60% by adding a separate 250 watt-hour Bosch range extender on the down tube. These electric Marlins also come with a full color display screen on the left side of the handlebar, and this is the Bosch Purion 200 screen that is pretty simple and intuitive to use, so that's nice. However, that's not all. The Marlin Plus frame also has mounting points for a mudguard in the back and comes with the SRAM universal derailleur hanger that allows for ease of replacement if you damage this part. But the coolest stuff is here. The normal Marlin uses Alpha Silver aluminum for construction, which is Trek's lowest end aluminum, but the Marlin Plus upgrades this to Trek's Alpha Platinum aluminum, which is their highest end aluminum, so it is stronger, lighter, and has smoother welds. The normal Marlin also has a straight head tube, which is weaker for mountain biking and restricts you to lower end suspension forks, while the Marlin Plus upgrades to a tapered head tube for a stronger front end that allows you to upgrade to more durable suspension forks. And finally, the normal Marlin has 135mm spacing in the rear of the frame for the normal quick release axle size, while the Marlin Plus upgrades to boost 148mm wide spacing and a through axle for way more strength and durability on the trail. If only we saw these upgrades come to a normal Marlin, but for now it's nice to see them on the Marlin Plus. Okay, but now onto those geometry measurements. I made this table here to highlight some of the main numbers, and as you can see, Trek tried to make these frames pretty similar, so the electric version would handle like the normal Marlin. So we have a decently slack head tube angle, so the bikes are pretty confident while riding downhill on trails, and a steep enough seat tube angle so the bikes can climb uphill without too much effort. I'll put up the full geometry measurements on the screen right now for both bikes, if you do want to pause and take a look at any of these. And although there are some changes, the bikes should be fairly similar in how they ride, besides of course the added weight of the e-bike. Alright, now let's get into the specifics on each bike, starting with the differences between the Marlin 6 and the Marlin Plus 6. Now in my comparison, I'm only going to cover the differences, so if I don't talk about a specific component on these bikes like the handlebars or the seats for example, it means that those parts are identical between the normal Marlin and the electric version of the bike. Alright, so the first difference we got to talk about here is the price. The 2023 Trek Marlin 6 Gen 3 currently retails for $900 US, while the Marlin Plus 6 retails for 2,500 British pounds, which equates to about 3,100 US. Definitely a huge price jump, but let's show you what changes for that money, starting with the color differences. So the Marlin 6 Gen 3 is offered in 4 colors, which are matte olive gray, hex blue to a deep dark blue fade, matte Neaster black, and blue sage. The Marlin Plus 6 is only offered in 2 colors, which are crimson and Neaster black. For the next difference, we have the suspension forks. The Marlin 6 comes with an SR Suntour XCT30 fork that uses a coil spring, has 30mm wide upper stanchions, has a lockout so you can make the fork fully rigid for efficiency in flat areas. It uses a quick release axle and has 100mm of travel in all frame sizes. The Marlin Plus 6 then goes to the SR Suntour XCM34 fork, which also has a coil spring but has wider 34mm stanchions for better strength and durability, which is necessary for an e-bike. This fork also has a lockout, but it has a tapered steerer for added strength and boost 110 spacing with a 15mm through axle for much more strength as well. It also has more travel at 120mm in most sizes, so overall the fork is much stronger and more capable on trails. Moving on, we have the wheels. The rims are actually better on the normal Marlin 6 since they are the tubeless ready Bontrager Covey rims, while the electric Marlin 6 uses the Bontrager connection rims. The Covey rims are 28 hole instead of 32 hole, which makes them stronger, and they are also wider at 23mm, which makes them more stable on the trail. The hubs on these rims are also different, but that's mainly because they have to be wider on the Marlin Plus to accommodate the wider frame and the suspension fork, so not a huge difference besides that. And the tires are actually the same as well, so next we have the brakes. Both bikes actually use the same Tektro hydraulic disc brakes, which are nothing special, but they get the job done. The difference is in the brake rotors, which are smaller 6-bolt rotors on the Marlin 6, but wider 203mm wide rotors on the Marlin Plus, which gives you much better stopping power. These are also center locking, which makes them easier to install and remove, and also means that they are less prone to warping. And finally, we have the last component difference between these bikes, which is the drivetrain. So the Marlin 6 uses a mainly Shimano Dior 1x10 drivetrain that has 1 gear in the front and 10 in the rear for a total of 10 speeds. This drivetrain is super reliable and durable, so it's a good one to have on this bike. The Marlin Plus 6 then uses the new Shimano Q's drivetrain, which has 9 speeds and isn't as high quality or as expensive as the Dior, but it should be good on this e-bike. For some more specifics, the Marlin 6 uses the Shimano Dior shifter that lets you shift up to 3 gears at once when going to an easier gear for pedaling, while the Marlin Plus 6 uses the Shimano Q's shifter that allows you to shift up to 2 gears at a time when going to an easier gear, so not that different, but the Dior is more durable and more reliable. The cranksets are both different brands, but the main thing here is that the electric Marlin uses a 32-tooth crankset over a 30-tooth, which allows the Marlin Plus to have harder gears for going faster, which also in turn means that the Marlin 6 has easier gears for riding uphill. For the cassettes, both have a range from 11 teeth to 46 teeth on the cogs, but the Marlin 6 has a more incremental range since it has 10 speeds instead of 9. The Marlin Plus does use a Link Glide cassette, which is new from Shimano, and it has thicker gears, taller teeth, and is 3 times more durable, so that'll help it last longer on this e-bike. And for the rear derailleurs, the Marlin 6 has a Dior derailleur that is super durable and has a clutch mechanism that lets you add more tension on the chain to prevent chain noise and damage. The Q's rear derailleur does not have a clutch, but it does use a higher tension spring to add some chain tension. However, overall it is made from lower quality materials that won't be as durable. And we have one last difference between the bikes, which is the weight. The Marlin 6 weighs about 32.63 pounds on average in a size medium, while the e-bike of course weighs more at 49.5 pounds, which isn't too bad for an e-bike. Okay, so moving on to the Marlin Plus 8. The normal Marlin 8 currently costs $1,300, while the Marlin Plus 8 jumps up to 3,000 pounds, or about $3,700. For the colors, the Marlin 8 comes in 2 colors, which are matte Neaster black and the color crimson. The Marlin Plus 8 is instead offered in the colors Mercury, which is actually pretty similar to the Marlin 8 color, and a purple flip to black fade. Next, for the suspension, the Marlin 8 uses a RockShox Judy Silver air fork with 30mm wide stanchions, a lockout, quick release axle, and 100mm of travel in most sizes. The Marlin Plus 8 upgrades to the RockShox Recon Silver RL air fork, which has wider 32mm stanchions for added strength, a motion control damper for better suspension efficiency, a lockout, tapered steerer, and boost 110 spacing for added strength, and 120mm of travel in most sizes. It's interesting to see that Trek did not put a 34mm wide fork on this e-bike like they did with the Marlin Plus 6, but 32mm should be good enough, and that makes it a little lighter as well. Now for the wheels. Starting with the rims, we have Bontrager Covey tubeless ready rims on the Marlin 8 that we also saw on the Marlin 6, but the Marlin Plus 8 goes to the Bontrager Line TLR 30 rims, which are also tubeless ready. The Line 30 rims are wider for added strength, and Trek isn't specific on how many holes are in the rim, but there shouldn't be a huge difference in strength either way. And the hubs once again are similar besides the sizing, though the Marlin Plus 8 does have a Shimano microspline hub in the rear, so it is compatible with higher end Shimano drivetrains, so that's nice if you do want to upgrade your drivetrain in the future. Now the tires on these bikes are different as well, with the Marlin 8 using the Maxxis Ardent tubeless ready 60 TPI tires that are 2.4 inches wide in all sizes, and you can see depending on the frame size of the bike we do have some different diameters like 26, 27.5, and 29 inches. And for the Marlin Plus, we have some brand new tires from Bontrager, and these are the Gunnison Pro XR tires that are also tubeless ready in 60 TPI, but they are wider at 2.6 inches wide for better stability. The tread patterns are also different, with the Marlin 8 having a faster rolling yet aggressive pattern, and the Marlin Plus 8 having larger knobs for better traction. And one final important thing to mention here is that the Marlin Plus 8 is set up tubeless from the store, so you won't have any inner tubes on this bike, which means less chance of getting flats, no risk of getting pinch flats, and you can run lower tire pressures for better grip. Now for a smaller difference, the seat posts on these bikes are actually the same exact Trans X dropper post, which is great to see, but the Marlin 8 has 130mm of travel in the size medium frame, while the Marlin Plus 8 has 150mm of travel in a size medium. I think it's a better option to give the medium frame riders more dropper travel, so that's good to see. And next, the brakes on these bikes are pretty different, with the Marlin 8 using Shimano MT200 hydraulic disc brakes that are 2-piston and use 160mm wide brake rotors in most sizes, but 180mm in the front for sizes medium and above for some better stopping power. The Marlin Plus 8 goes to the Shimano MT420 brakes that are 4-piston for way better stopping power, and they have much wider 203mm wide brake rotors in the front and rear, which are also center locking, so once again some better installation and some better resistance to warping. And finally, for the drivetrains, I'll put both of them on the screen right now, and this one is a huge upgrade. So the normal Marlin 8 uses the SRAM SX Eagle 1x12 drivetrain that has 12 speeds, and this is the entry-level mountain biking drivetrain from SRAM. The Marlin Plus 8 upgrades to the Shimano Dior 1x12 drivetrain, which is definitely higher quality, more reliable, and more durable. To compare some of the drivetrain parts, the SX Eagle shifter allows you to shift up to 5 gears at a time when going to an easier gear for going uphill, while the Dior only lets you shift up to 3 gears at once, but the Dior shifter is definitely more durable and more well constructed, so it just shifts a lot smoother. And once again, we have 32 teeth on the e-bike crankset instead of 30 teeth on the normal bike's crank. So same story, you get harder gears on the e-bike and easier gears on the normal bike, but it's not a huge difference. The cassettes are pretty similar. The Marlin Plus just has a slightly wider range and has more durable and lightweight components. And the rear derailleurs both have clutches to add chain tension, but the SRAM SX derailleur is just much lower quality and tends to bend very easily, whereas the Shimano Dior is super well built and reliable. But lastly, we have the weights of both bikes. The Marlin 8 in a size medium with inner tubes installed comes in at 31.51 pounds on average, while the Marlin Plus 8 in a size medium with tubeless sealant installed comes in at 46.96 pounds, so not bad there either. But that is it for my comparison on these new electric Marlin Plus models. I'll show you all of those completed tables on the screen now, but let's talk about these bikes and my thoughts on them. So I actually think these are pretty cool. Obviously, we love Marlins here on my channel, so I'm interested to see all of your reactions to these electrified ones. I know e-bikes are definitely not everyone's cup of tea, but nonetheless, if you are looking to buy an e-bike, these would be the least expensive ones from Trek, so it allows more people to get on bikes. That being said, these bikes do not nearly have as much power as other e-bikes out there, which can seem like a bad thing if you're paying over $3,000 for an e-bike and it tops out around 15 miles per hour. Maybe when they come to the US, they'll have a higher top speed, but to some people, this could also be a benefit since you're not going to be going as fast on the trails and you still have to work a bit to ride the bike, making it more of a boost rather than a full-on electric bike. In terms of components, I think these Marlin Plus bikes totally rocked it. We have tapered head tubes, boost spacing, amazing drivetrains, and not bad suspension forks. Of course, some of the parts could be better, like the rims on the Marlin Plus 6, for example, but overall, they aren't too bad. If I had to pick one of these bikes and I knew I wanted to keep an e-bike in my garage, I'd go for the Marlin Plus 8, since for about $600 more, you get a way better drivetrain, suspension fork, and tubeless wheels, and a dropper post on top of all that, so super good and crucial components to have a capable bike on trails that does not need to be upgraded. But that's it from my end. I want to hear all of your thoughts in the comments below, so feel free to leave a comment or ask any questions. But besides that, I hope all of you have a great day today, and remember to keep biking.